Hello, friends. Happy day to you. It is December 19th, 2018. This is Molly McCord, and thank you for joining me for Conscious Cool Chic Radio, where every Wednesday we talk about the astrology and energies of right now. Welcome to all of you who are listening for the first time. Thank you for joining me. This podcast has been live now for over 6.5 years. And it is my joy to talk with you every week about the energies that we are experiencing individually and collectively. I have to tell you that the best thing I hear from so many of you is that you feel like I'm talking right to you, that I'm talking to your life, your world, and your experience. And I take this as wonderful, beautiful confirmation of our oneness, of how we're all feeling these energies, of how we're all totally connected at this time, and that I wanted you to know that so many of you are going through these experiences in a similar way. So thank you for reaching out to share that. It's wonderful to hear that, and just to let you know that you're not alone. There's other people who are feeling these energies and having the similar energetic experiences. So today we have the sun at 27 degrees of Sagittarius. There's only a few degrees left before the sun enters Capricorn. And this is a transition that marks the beginning of the next season. And it is the solstice. When the sun enters Capricorn, the solstice begins, and that is the winter solstice for us in the northern hemisphere and the summer solstice for those in the southern hemisphere. So the solstice is an energetic portal that moves us into a next experience of the seasons. And the cardinal signs initiate all of the seasons. So here in the northern hemisphere, Capricorn initiates winter. And then again in the southern hemisphere, Capricorn will initiate summer. So the cardinal signs, which are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, are the energies of initiation, and they're a beginning point. And the beginning points are meant to be a fresh take, a new start, something that comes through that supports what we're meant to understand and work with over the next season. Now, this is a time, too, of bigger energies because we have a very potent full moon in Cancer. It's at 0 degrees of Cancer. The full moon in Cancer happens on the solstice. So Capricorn energy officially begins December 21st at 5:22 p.m. Eastern Time. And then we quickly have a full moon in Cancer on December 22nd. And what's fascinating to me about this full moon is that in the northern hemisphere, it's the darkest night. It's the longest night because it's the day with the least amount of sunlight. And yet we're blessed with this gorgeous full moon. So we have less hours of sunlight, but we have all this moonlight with the Cancer full moon. So something's really being illuminated. We're really meant to see what we couldn't see, and we're meant to feel and tap into what this Cancer energy means for us in a private way. I have a separate video for you on YouTube that describes this full moon in depth, the energies of it, and I hope that it supports you in knowing what might be showing up in your chart. Every full moon is a place of balance. It's the balance between the moon and the sun, and where we need to come into a new sense of harmony, where we need to see both sides of something, where we need to understand what was initiated at the last new moon and what we've learned in the preceding 2 weeks of the full moon. So it's always a cycle, and it's a potent one. So again, December 21st, the sun goes into Capricorn. December 22nd, a very powerful full moon in Cancer. So we have in today's show a few messages to share with you. I have to share with you a really interesting intuitive message that came through last Thursday and Friday. And it wasn't going away, and so I understood I was meant to share it with you, and that it pertains to the strong Pisces energy of right now. So I'm going to share that message with you shortly. Then we're also going to do another story time, and this time it's going to be about Jupiter Part 2, and it's going to be more specifically focused on Jupiter's journey through Sagittarius over the next year. Now, last week I talked about Jupiter's journey through Sagittarius, Capricorn, and into Aquarius. And that was to give you the broad strokes energy, the bigger picture. Because what's going to happen is that later on in 2019, Jupiter enters this ongoing energetic dance with Capricorn and Saturn. And it's like, how many times can we get the message that Capricorn and Saturn energies are going to be powerful over the next number of years? And so Jupiter enters the equation, and Jupiter is also needing to learn from Saturn and understand the mastery of Capricorn. But until he gets to that point, he has some really interesting experiences over this next year. So today's story time will focus on the Jupiter and Sagittarius journey. And as you remember from last week, Jupiter is the Renaissance man. He is the one who collects the information, he brings it together, he understands, he learns, he grows. He is the part of us that's always invited to expand, to always be open to what we don't know, and to stay in that place of possibility. So we'll talk about that here in just a moment. Another quick update for you is that Venus is now at 12 degrees of Scorpio. And I know that many of you have really resonated with the story time about Venus in Scorpio. And I believe that episode was on November 28th, if you wanted to go back and listen again. But now Venus is at 12 degrees, so she has that one dot on her forehead, right, where she's past the one threshold, and she's moving through this transformation. Please know that you can't rush transformation. We're not there yet. We're all moving through something. We all have something that's meant to be loved, accepted, and transformed through Venus in Scorpio. Every planet that goes through Scorpio is meant to change something permanently, to advance into new dimensions of power, personal power, collective power. And that's just the process, and it can't be rushed. And we can see how comfortable or uncomfortable we are with that in whether we allow ourselves to go there, right? We go into certain places. We allow ourselves to be in this deep place of trust. And that's what Venus in Scorpio is moving us through. So please honor yourself and honor this process. Venus is about to make a trine to Neptune in Pisces. And this is the trine where she meets up with that Neptune and Pisces mermaid in the lagoon, and she feels that she needs to throw something to the mermaid to get rid of it, but then she also receives back greater spiritual understanding and spiritual wisdom. So that's happening right now, December 19th and 20th. And then we also have, as Venus voyages on, she will eventually meet up here with Pluto, who gives her money because he rewards her for her hard work, for what she has put in, for what she has come to understand about her power. And he rewards her in the physical, tangible ways because Pluto in Capricorn is an earth sign. It's about the power of being an earth energy. So that exact connection between Venus and Pluto happens at 20 degrees, and that will actually be the end of this month, December 29th. But just a heads up that that's where Venus is moving through right now. Another interesting energy of this week is that Mercury is going to be making a conjunction with Jupiter. And this is all about big laughs, big adventure, big, big, big fun. They make their exact conjunction on December 22nd. It happens fast, so it could even be the 21st and 22nd at 9 degrees of Sagittarius. And this is where you can have good news, good developments. Things go big. You can find it hard to moderate. You could stick both feet in your mouth and start chewing or keep talking because Mercury talks a big game in Sagittarius, and then Jupiter amplifies it. So it's literally, there could be big tales. There could be some big stories. Exaggerations are very possible, and propaganda is big when there is a link up between Mercury and Jupiter and Sagittarius. But hopefully you feel it as something buoyant, happy, uplifting, good news coming through. So again, this will happen at 9 degrees of Sagittarius, and that is the 21st and 22nd of December. So let me share with you this intuitive message that I was feeling that it's like so vital, I guess, that I share this, and I'm just trusting it because it really pertains to the 3 planets in Pisces. So as we've been talking about, we have Neptune in Pisces, Chiron in Pisces, and Mars in Pisces. Pisces is the last energy in a full cycle. It's the 12th and final astrology sign. It is the place of completion. It is the place of endings and letting go. It's where our ego fades away and dissolves. We let go of our humanness and we understand our spiritual healing, our spiritual abilities, and we have to understand that everything changes. And Pisces is that energy of everything changes form and it all dissolves away. And then when the energies move into Aries, there's basically that big bang energy of something new forming and coming out as a new journey begins, a new spiral initiates. But right now, with a strong Pisces energy, it can be very difficult on our human will, our human ego, and the human mind. And the energies that I was feeling that were coming up in the collective unconscious, I'm going to say it's the unconscious energies, had to do with the lower expressions of Pisces, which are about separation, victim, self-pity, escapism, and anything that takes us away from our sense of power. Because Pisces is really powerful in its spiritual mastery. It's not about the human mastery at all. And so the energy that I kept feeling was that of a collective sense of despair. And I know that's a heavy word, despair. And what I was feeling was that this is coming up for many people in certain areas of their lives, whether it is in their overall life, it's in a relationship, it's in a job, it's in a situation that you feel you have no power in. It's something in your world that feels like I'm just stuck. I can't change this. It's not changing. I've been in this forever and it's not changing. And so the despair sets in. And what I was seeing were then these flashbacks to another time in human history that I felt it as maybe even the Dark Ages, many centuries ago, when humanity was much more tribal and secular, where we survived off of our family and our communities and we didn't leave. And I got this image of an area on the globe that I think is Indonesia, and you just stayed with your family, you stayed on your island, you stayed with your tribe, and you worked and you did whatever the family business was, whether that was fishing or working in the fields or whatever it was. And there was a sense of many people feeling stuck. They were stuck in what their obligations were and what their roles were. They were stuck in what they thought would never change in their life. And so I feel like clearly this is centuries ago, this energy, that we didn't have a lot of power or choices in changing our life circumstances. And it was just a whole different paradigm in the human journey where you just honored what you were a part of and you contributed, and that's how you survived. But there was a sense of deflation. Like, even if you wanted more, it wasn't really possible. If you wanted to move, or if you wanted something else, it wasn't even possible. It wasn't even something you could explore. And that's where the despair set in, because it was sort of like, I can't get out of this. This is just my life. And it became something that felt like a really heavy weight. And so then I got this image of a energetic crevice, sort of like when they're climbing these really steep mountains, like Mount Everest, and you go with guides, with Sherpas who help you up the mountain. They know the path, they know where to go, but they know where the crevices are, and they know how to put over the crevices the right ladders, or how to create the right bridge to get over the crevice. Well, I felt this energy as like an energetic crevice where you feel like you fall down into something, and it's traumatic, and you can't get out. And it can feel suffocating, and it can feel so scary. So these messages just kept coming through because I feel like there's something in each of us that's looking for a way out of what we've been holding or carrying or sitting in that's felt never ending. It's like, when is this going to start over? When is this going to be done? When can I move on? Because I know that a number of you have felt that this past year has been very hard, that the past 2 years, the past 5 years, it's been really intense in what you've been working through energetically, physically, consciously, etc. And so the message I got was then of I saw a paper that was a carbon copy. And I know that many generations of people listen to this show. So carbon copy is when you take a pen and there's like 3 layers of paper, and you write something on the top layer, and it goes imprints into the bottom 2 layers of paper. So you would fill out a form once, and then you would disperse it 3 different copies to different places. So this is clearly before electronic or digital papers were being kept everywhere. But I got the image of carbon copy, right? It's like the imprint, the energetic imprint of despair, originated in a lifetime that I feel was centuries ago, but it had this carbon copy imprint that we felt in other experiences and other lifetimes that's brought up these Pisces fears, the wounds, the sense of what's it all about? Like, I'm what's it all for? Like, why am I doing this? Again, it goes into this sense of helplessness. It's never going to change, so why should I care? It's why do I keep doing anything if I don't see new results? And the image I then got was how the energy goes into this crevice, and it feels so stuck. And it can feel like you've been working on something, and I feel like what you're really tapping into is energies from other lifetimes, whether it's 3 other lifetimes or 3 other experiences, 3 relationships. I just felt the number 3 really strongly, too. It could also pertain to 3 chakras, like your 3 lower chakras or your 3 upper chakras, but I kept seeing the number 3. And it just feels like we are meant to be clearing that right now. And that's why this is coming up. We're meant to understand that the emotional messages are just temporary visitors. And the victim energy, the separation energy, the powerlessness is just part of this journey at times. And yet we can make new choices, even when it feels overwhelming, even if you feel like there's nothing else to do, Molly. I've tried everything. I've done everything. I'm giving up. Those things, those messages that come up, the visual I then got was you take the carbon copy of that energy imprint and you watch it burn away with the violet flame. And the violet flame is an energy that relates to the 7th chakra. violet energy and you release that despair, that helplessness, that powerlessness, those feelings, all of it, you watch it burn away, back up into spirit, and that violet flame then becomes white, purifying, clear, light. And we're meant to be doing this right now, especially as Mars in Pisces is about to make a conjunction with Chiron in Pisces. Mars is always an initiator and a trigger. This conjunction is exact December 27th and 29th. And right now as I do this show, the sun is at 27 degrees of Sagittarius, squaring that Chiron in Pisces at 27 degrees of Pisces. So we are literally feeling these bigger wounds from other places, other times, other energies that aren't really us, but that's not how it feels. And especially when you're looking for a new result or a new outcome and you don't see it, you get the sense of nothing's going to change, right? So I feel like there's something we're just meant to be aware of in ourselves, because that Chiron energy, it's at 27 Pisces, is also trining Cancer, the North Node in Cancer at 28 degrees. So it sextiles the South Node in Capricorn at 28 degrees. Sorry, it's 28 degrees is the North Node. So we have a lot of Chiron energy right now. And Chiron moves so slowly that Chiron will not be back here in Pisces for a number of years. I mean, it's probably going to be about 48, 49 years. So it might never happen again in your lifetime where Chiron returns to Pisces. So when you feel something come up that's the lower vibe, feelings of helplessness, grief, regret, heartbreak, all these things that compose part of our human journeys, you can visualize it burning away with violet flame energy. I'd recommend any guided meditations on violet flames. I'd recommend anything that makes you feel like you're purifying. This can be great time for forgiveness work, self-forgiveness around what you didn't know better, what you didn't understand, forgiving the parts of yourself that were in a different level of consciousness, a different place or state of awareness, forgiving yourself. And that can also set this free. We're meant to set these parts of ourselves free. Chiron energy, again, it's just strong right now. It's going to continue to be strong through the rest of December. And then Chiron will enter Aries again February 19th. So from now, so literally 2 months of some deep transmuting these feelings and energies. So the messages around the other places and times in human history, I feel like that's when the energy was initiated, and you might receive messages through your dream state, astral travel, anything that comes through or comes up that you're tapping into that doesn't feel of this world or of this time. And what I also am now feeling is that if you feel anything come up around another lifetime that you believe it had that energy thread, the energy thread of despair, of feeling stuck, of feeling powerless, what you can do right now is send a beautiful white angel to that version of yourself, to that timeline, and to that lifetime experience. And then that angel, I'm getting the image of that white angel can come in and like wipe clean that heaviness of despair, whether it's in the aura, in the heart, in the chakras, wherever, like that angel can literally purify it so that that lifetime can feel very different and can feel more open and full of possibility instead of heavy and weighted down. And, I hope you don't have a lifetime where you were stuck in a crevice. I hope that isn't it, but that's what the energy feels like, of like, I'm just so low. And, it also reminded me of that one scene in Lord of the Rings where Gandalf the Grey falls down into a crevice and is fighting that monster, and I can't remember if it was a bad dragon or a monster, but he fights that dragon down there at the highest point of the lowest valley and then rises up again as Gandalf the White, right? So it's an initiation energy. So keep in mind that part of this deeper and heavier things are initiations to the next spiral of consciousness. So I hope that helps you clear out some things that you've been holding and carrying, and to keep purifying yourself for this next energy cycle. On that note, we have big energies coming in January as Mars goes into Aries on January 1st, and Saturn is conjunct the Sun in Capricorn on January 1st. So a powerful start to the new year, followed by a really big new moon solar eclipse at 15 degrees of Capricorn. And I have that video up on YouTube for you as well, so you can see those energies. And I describe it as like shattering a glass. So do not do this at home. I am not suggesting you do this. But when you take like let's say a wine glass or a vase, and it crashes and it disperses, of course it's horrible in the sense that, okay, now it's broken and you've got to shatter pieces. But it's the sound waves. The sound waves can clear out energies, and that's what I was feeling with this upcoming first eclipse of 2019, is that there's something about shattering away old energies through a sound healing, right? Tuning forks, anything with sound. It just felt really strong. And it feels like there's a lot in January of a new chapter beginning because of Mars and Aries and this new moon that starts on January 5th. So there's a sense that the new energy is arriving, and it's going to feel even stronger and clearer because of what you do right now and because of what you allow and trust and move through. Now, there are still a number of planets in both the 3 planets in Pisces plus Venus in Scorpio, the North Node in Cancer, so we're still allowing the emotions to move through us. This is also good for the intuitive development. And then the planets in Sagittarius, Mercury, Jupiter, and the Sun right now are giving us the positivity, the optimism, the sense of what's ahead. And then pretty soon we'll have the focus on Capricorn, which allows us to be hardy and strong and aware of what truly matters and what truly supports us going forward. So it's never boring in the sky, but I hope this helps put together some more pieces around what's happening. And then one more thing to let you know about here is that not only is the Sun in Sagittarius squaring Chiron, which is a trigger. Okay, it's a triggering energy. Anytime there's a square to Chiron, it can feel like something comes up. We thought we healed, we thought we saw something, and then something else comes forward for us to look at and to basically take care of ourselves, to take care of our emotional world. But then after that square happens, the Sun trines Uranus at 28 degrees of Aries. And this is quite dynamic, exciting energy. The Sun squaring Uranus is things happening quickly, and there's excitement, and it's very vibrant. And there's a sense of yes. It's a yes energy. I want to try that. I want to go for it. I'm up for the next adventure. So after that Chiron square, the Sun gets healed by cosmic brilliance, from Uranus and Aries, which is connected to your own soul brilliance. And this will happen exact on the 20th, December 20th. So lots going on, as always, but I hope this helps you hone in on what is important to your journey right now. Now let's get started with story time and go into this Jupiter and Sagittarius journey, because we're meant to be going through a really interesting time here of exploring, learning, understanding, and staying open. Now, I'm going to assume you heard the story time from last week where Jupiter and Sagittarius, the Renaissance man who's ready for his next adventure because he's in his home sign of Sagittarius. And that means he's got to get out. He's got to go. You cannot tame him. You cannot hold him back. He needs to be free. He gets restless. No commitments. Nope, don't ask for commitments. Don't ask for him to do anything, because he needs to figure it out for himself, and he needs to find his own answers. So this Jupiter and Sagittarius energy is all about being out in the world to discover what he hasn't learned, to understand new knowledge, and to see the next thing, like just live in the moment. So he gets on the plane to go around the world on one of those around-the-world flights that stops at each continent. And so he boards the flight, and he travels to all these different lands, all these different places. He wants to meet people. He wants to talk. He wants to sit down at the campfire, share the stories, listen, and learn and understand different ways that people live, different ways that people experience their life and they experience their daily world. Well, as he does this, Jupiter makes it clear that he always wants to see the best of every place that he voyages. So coming up on January 13th, he has his first square to Neptune in Pisces. Now, throughout 2019, Jupiter is going to square Pisces 3 times. And this first square on January 13th is at 14 degrees. So Jupiter in Sag at 14 degrees and Neptune in Pisces at 14 degrees. And he goes to the nearest ocean to connect with Neptune. Neptune is the ocean. So with this first leg of his tour, he lands in Africa. He's taking some bush plains around. He's seeing all the savannas. He's understanding more about native cultures, and he finds himself then traveling to Madagascar. And while he's on the island of Madagascar, in January, he goes to the Indian Ocean. And he meets up with Neptune and Pisces, who is our mermaid, right, who keeps making her appearance known. And Neptune and Pisces is a water sign, and it's feminine. Jupiter in Sagittarius is a fire sign, and it's masculine. And Neptune is the stronger energy. Neptune in Pisces is strongest because it's slower moving. The slowest moving planet is always the strongest in any transit or aspect. Okay, so Neptune in Pisces is stronger. And so Jupiter in Sag, he shows up, he's very strong, he's very confident, and he's very big, and he's like, this is what I've learned, and he's talking to the mermaid, and she tells him, let it go. Don't be so attached. Just take what you've learned, but don't let it become too ego-based. Don't let it define you too much, because every time you meet up with me, I'm going to ask you to surrender and to allow yourself to stay open. So Jupiter in Sagittarius says, well, he scratches his head. He's like, but this is who I am. And the mermaid says, is it? And then she swims away. And he's left, well, I just learned all this, and I just understood this, and I love this about me, but I'm not supposed to hold on to it. I'm not supposed to be out of balance with my masculine and my feminine. So it's a little jolting for our strong Jupiter and Sag to come up against Neptune, who says, maybe that's not all. Maybe there's more. Now, in traditional astrology, Jupiter also ruled Pisces. Traditional astrology is when we could only see so far in the solar system. Think Galileo. And Galileo could only see so far in the heavens. And so traditional astrology had different rulerships for planets and astrology signs. Jupiter was associated with Pisces. So these energies get along well. They are both very open, they're creative, they're seeking and restless, and there's common traits between Sagittarius and Pisces. So it is a square, but it's a little bit more of a soft square because of how the energies are compatible. They're both mutable signs, which are about change and possibilities, wanting to make something more, wanting something to keep changing form. But the difference is that Sagittarius is masculine and fire, and Pisces is feminine, water, and intuitive. So how I see these energies working is that together they're about our spiritual growth, about transcending reality, about rising above what we think is truth, and moving from lowercase t truth to uppercase T truth, which is Neptune and Pisces domain, and it's unconditional love, and it's true forgiveness, and it's these bigger spiritual principles that we're not supposed to forget. So Jupiter in Sagittarius, he's like, okay, fine, I'll hand this over. I won't let this be too much of my self-identity. He gets back on a plane, and from Madagascar, he travels north, he stops in Turkey, he goes to India, he hangs out in parts of Indonesia, and he keeps moving around until he lands in Australia. And he lands in Australia, and of course he has to travel the outback. He has to see everything. He has to eat everything. He has to go to every site. You know, he's just up for all the adventures. He just keeps saying yes to everything. So from there he goes to New Zealand, and then he's like, well, you know, I've been traveling so much, I think I'll follow the Pacific Ocean over to Chile. So he then goes to Chile, and he's adapting to the different seasons and the different languages, and he's open to learning languages. Jupiter in Sagittarius, when he wants to learn something, he'll really hone in and focus on it. So here he is in Chile in June. And in June, we have the next Jupiter squaring Neptune, and this happens at 18 degrees. June 17th, Jupiter in Sagittarius squares Neptune and Pisces at 18 degrees. So it's our second square between these two planets. So he's in Chile, and he goes down to the ocean, and this time he's at the Pacific Ocean. And lo and behold, the mermaid shows up again, and he's like, I've changed. I'm different since when we last met in Madagascar. I've learned a new language. I've understand even more. I've enjoyed my time in Australia, and now here I am in South America, and I'm learning even more about Santiago, and he's just so full, and he's feeling so strong. And all of this energy makes him even bigger. He gets even more expanded, and now he's at 18 degrees. So he's even further along in the deacons, and so is Neptune. And they meet up, and he's telling his stories, and he's understanding the truth. He's like, I understand more about people. And all Neptune and Pisces does in her playful, intuitive mermaid ways is she just asks questions. And she says, is that all there is? Is that all that matters to you? What if there's more? What if there's even something else that you haven't discovered yet that you're meant to understand about this year? And then Jupiter and Sagittarius just like, are you kidding me? You know, he's a fire sign, so he gets fired up. And he's like, I've learned all this. I've studied all this. You're saying it's not enough. And so he kind of goes off a little because he's upset that she's still questioning him. She's still doubting his knowledge. And this is where he goes off, volcano, with the fire and the lava and just gets it out, and then calms down and gets into this place of maybe there's more I need to journey through. So the Pisces and Neptune mermaid, again, she floats away. She says, toodles, meet up with you later, because she's all about exploring the whole ocean, not being locked in, not being caged, and just having her freedom too. So she's this teacher of Jupiter and Sagittarius, and she is teaching him to not latch on to anything too much and to stay open to the mystical wonders of the world, the mystical wonders of this experience and the journey of it all, and to keep releasing the ego. So every time you think it's you, this is who I am, this is my truth, this is what I know for certain, Neptune and Pisces comes and says, is it? Are you sure? Because maybe there's more. Maybe there's something else you haven't seen yet. So after this connection in the Pacific Ocean, Jupiter in Sagittarius continues on. And this time, he is ready for a change of pace, a change of scenery, and he goes to Brazil for a few days. He likes Venezuela. He goes to Cuba, and finally he gets back on a plane and he's over to Europe. He goes to Ireland. He hangs out in Germany. He's spending some time in Finland and Sweden, and finally he lands in Portugal. And in Portugal, now he is ready to, of course, enjoy the food, the wine, everything about Lisbon and the cities, and then he goes down to the ocean. And this time it's the Atlantic Ocean. So he's been to the Indian Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, and now he's at the Atlantic Ocean for his third and final meeting with Neptune and Pisces. This happened September 21st at 17 degrees. Jupiter in Sag at 17 degrees, Neptune in Pisces at 17 degrees. And finally, he's both exhausted and hesitant because he's wondering, what is Neptune going to take away now? Because every time he shows up with this enthusiasm and this sense of what's possible and this sense of, oh, I have to have this, this is truth, this is me, she takes it away. She keeps taking away part of his ego, part of his masculine energy, part of his sense of self that he has strongly identified with. The Neptune and Pisces energy, again, the mermaid shows up and she's like, this is not all of who you are. And she reminds him that all of who you are is also in me and is in the trees and in the ocean. It's in every country you've been to. It's in every land that you've hiked on, that you've ate on, that you've explored. You are everywhere. But you're thinking you're somewhere. You're thinking you're this or you're that. And this Neptune and Pisces is saying connect to the oneness of everything, because that's going to continue to strengthen you and make you stronger. So she's basically been bashing away at his hardened edges, at where he's had too much fire, too much ego, too much mental energy, too much. And she's saying, let that all be tempered. Let it all be part of the ocean. And don't feel like you have to find something. And yes, there's much in the world, but there's even more not only within you, but within everything. Neptune and Pisces, this very wise, intuitive mermaid, is saying how everything is our teacher, and you are also a teacher. And if you can step into that energy, you will connect to all energies. And then what she does, this mermaid, she starts to make the figure 8 in the water, which is the infinity sign. And she starts to show Jupiter and Sag that when you create an experience from the energy of infiniteness, from infinity consciousness, you then open up to so much more that you can't possibly see, touch, or know in your humanness. So Neptune and Pisces is reminding us to keep softening, to keep in our emotional feminine flows, to stay in these parts of ourselves that we can easily overlook or think are outside of us, and to come back to the infinity energy, that what if it's all forever? Yes, make the most of right now, but know that you have forever for some things, for some energies, and that can lessen your expectations, your attachments, and your ego's drive to overly identify with too much. So this ongoing energy is showing us where we're meant to come back into ourselves even more. So this is essential for Jupiter and Sagittarius because he's going to move through the rest of Sagittarius and eventually arrive at some very important points in his journey. He's been all over the globe. He's been to as many countries as possible. He's tried to put his feet in as many oceans, seas, bays, gulfs as he can. And then he comes back home, to his home, where his library of knowledge is, where all his wisdom is kept. And he wants to capture what he's learned. He wants to capture what has stuck with him, what matters, what's true, what's essential. And so he starts to put all of these travels and stories into his next books, his next collections, his next Encyclopedia Britannica, printed and bound, that is meant to sit on library shelves. And he does all this, and in November of 2019, he enters the area of the Galactic Center as he moves to 25 degrees of Sagittarius starting November 10th until the final degrees of Sagittarius December 2nd. So about 3 weeks, he's activated by galactic codes, new downloads, new wisdom, new higher understanding that takes him out even higher on the consciousness spiral, where he can see even bigger understandings. He even has a truer integration of his abilities to be more than simply his human form. This is an opening energy. It's a sense of the map. He gets a new download of a map of the galaxy when he is in the Galactic Center degrees. And that is the map that gives him a new sense of purpose, commitment, and direction as he moves into Capricorn. He enters Capricorn December 3rd. And this is important because now he's entered the domain of Saturn, also in Capricorn. And now Jupiter is meant to take everything he learned through Sagittarius and make it real, put it into form, organize it, structure it. How do I take all of this and make it useful for the world, make it useful in different constructs and teachings and understandings? And so then he journeys through Capricorn, and he gets this understanding of what really is needed right now for this chapter of humanity, because he got that download from the Galactic Center of the current map and the current needs. And then he voyages through Capricorn, as I mentioned last week, and he has to make serious decisions and make commitments and say no, and he has to stay at the desk, and he wears his suit with his orange socks. And then he finally meets up with Saturn officially at the 0 and 1 degrees of Aquarius. And that happens in December 2020, December 20th through the 29th of 2020. And this is where they're working together to put that map and that plan into action and have support for rebuilding and structuring humanity now. So there's a lot here where the Jupiter and Sagittarius energy, it can't be too full of itself. It can't be too pompous or arrogant. It can't be the know-it-all. It can't have the only small t truth. It has to keep surrendering the ego throughout 2019 to stay open to infinity, to stay open to forever, and to stay open to even more that's going to help support what needs to come into place in 2020 and beyond. So Jupiter is on quite a discovery adventure, and wherever this energy is in your chart is where you're being asked to not over-identify, to keep surrendering, to keep trusting, and to not feel like you have to know it all or figure it all out. And essentially the discomfort with the square is, can you be okay not knowing? Can you be okay in just this moment, this time, what you have, what you know, and can you allow that to fill you up and bring you peace at the same time? So on that note, my friends, thank you so much for joining me for another podcast episode. I'll be back next Wednesday. It's highly unlikely I'll be doing an episode on December 24th, which is Christmas Eve. I'll be with family. And it's highly unlikely I'll be doing an episode December 31st, New Year's Eve. But I will be here for the Wednesday episodes until the end of this year. So I'll connect with you next Wednesday, December 26th. I'm so grateful for you on this journey. You can find out more about me below this podcast, as well as some more links that I hope support you. And until we meet next week, I wish you a beautiful holiday if you celebrate Christmas. I wish you a beautiful Kwanzaa. I wish you a beautiful whatever you celebrate if you celebrate. And mostly I'm just grateful that we can all connect through astrology. So have a lovely week ahead, and I'll see you back here on Wednesday. Take good care. Bye-bye.